We're rolling.
Okay. So you want to pay people to move to Western Massachusetts. Where did you come up with that idea? I know Vermont has something similar. Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, so we saw Vermont, pass this law last year and just took effect this January, and that was really one of the things that got me thinking about this idea. And then it dawned on me, the state, without batting an eyelash, pays tens of millions of dollars in incentives to huge companies to locate in the Boston area. The GE deal alone, they paid more than $150,000 per worker. That seems unfair when we could have programs that maybe directly give the money right to the worker to come to Western Mass to build homes here, to pay taxes here, to raise their families here, and to contribute to our local economy.
So where is that money coming from?
It'll come from the same place where our road money comes from, where our train money comes from, where the same place where the incentives for GE come from, which is from the state, from the state budget. This is short money, Monica, and is actually going to be really transformative if correctly implemented. We know in Western Mass that the economy has been unbalanced for a long time. There is a vacuuming happening of jobs, of wealth, of opportunity out of our Western Mass communities, out of our small communities, our small towns, and our gateway cities, and it's hyper-concentrating in places like New York City and Boston. That's not sustainable. We need young families coming. We need new businesses opening. We need people coming and raising families here in Western Mass and contributing to our local economy.
So what would you say to the people who already live here and they're like, hey, wait,
yeah.
Where's my money?
Well,
I already live here.
It's a fair point. I already live here too, and I've grown up here, and my family has been here for a long time, so I'm totally sympathetic with where they're coming from. What I would say is this is going to help us. This is self-interested for people who already live here in Western Mass, because again, look at where the trend line is. If our school population continues to go down, that hurts the kids that are left behind in the school district. If our economy continues to lag behind the economy in Eastern Mass, that hurts families who are already here. If the house next door to you is abandoned or is vacant or is not on the tax rolls, that makes your tax burden even higher. So what we need to do is we need to bring in new families, we need to bring in new investment that's going to grow the economy and help everyone. And the other thing I would just point out about this is it's only $10,000 over 2 years. That's a lot of money that will help incentivize people to move here. But if someone moves to Western Mass, buys a house here and starts paying property taxes every year after that initial incentive, they're going to pay that money back many times over the course of their career and over the course of their life.
Okay, so the $10,000 is not all at once.
It's a 2-year. It's up to $5,000 in year 1, up to $5,000 in year 2, and it would be used for relocation expenses. So, the ideal scenario here to think about is if there's like a person working in Boston who's sick of the grind, they're sick of the traffic, they're sick of the high costs, and they work, maybe in computer programming or they work in graphic design, something that doesn't require them to be physically there. They can work through their laptop. Come move to Western Mass. Come move to Springfield or Holyoke or Chicopee. You could buy a great house for a fraction of the cost of a house in the Boston area, and you can work remotely. You could work at a coffee shop, you could work at a co-working space, you could work from home, and we'll give you that incentive. But if you think about it, think about all the economic opportunity that catalyzes. That family will move here, they're going to buy a house here, they're going to shop in our local stores, they're going to eat in our local restaurants, they're going to support local businesses.
So, what group are you just targeting? Remote workers, or?
Yeah. So this bill in particular is about remote workers, because this is a huge untapped resource for us. Companies across the world are trying to promote remote working, and in this new 21st century economy, so much is done by computers anyway that you really can work remotely. You think about the quality of telecommunications software now, the quality of video conferencing equipment. Anybody with FaceTime can now communicate face-to-face with people all over the world. So there's a huge trend on this globally, nationally. We want to make sure Western Mass is part of that. And we have a perfect opportunity to do that because we have a great location. We're right in between New York City and Boston. We're a great place to live with really high quality of life, fairly low costs, a lot of open space. You can have a great quality of life here. You can go to our local restaurants. You can go hike in Mount Tom, and you can still stay connected to the big city jobs in Boston or in New York. And by the way, we're close enough that, especially with increased rail service, investments in better public transportation, you can easily get to Boston or to New York maybe a day a week or a couple days a month to do those face-to-face meetings when you need to.
So someone who's interested in this might be like, oh, that sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Is there a catch?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a catch. Yeah, I mean, the catch is this is new way of thinking. It's a new idea. It's something that's been tested in only a handful of other places. We appreciate, and I appreciate, that it's a new idea, which is why we've capped the total amount. It's a pilot program, no more than $1 million spread out over 3 years. It's a $41 billion budget. Again, it's $10,000 per worker, which is a fraction of what the GE deal was in Boston, which was $150,000 per worker. So I think that this is, very surgical. It's a test pilot over 3 years. Let's see if it works. If we get good feedback, we can expand it. If it's not such good feedback, then, we can try something else.
Okay. And what about people who may be thinking of leaving Western Massachusetts? If they lived here already and wanted to take a remote job, would they be eligible, or is...
That's definitely something that we could explore. That's not the way it's currently written, but yeah, if somebody is, thinking of a job in Boston, for example, well, if we can convince them to stay here and work remotely for their Boston job, that's certainly a potential. Again, this is one part of a sort of constellation of issues we need to address. We know what the trend line is in Western Mass, and quite frankly, policymakers, Beacon Hill, have ignored the issues here in Western Mass for far too long. We have been seeing a decline in population. We've been seeing our workforce age. We've been seeing companies leave for far too long. We need to think creatively and boldly. We need to think big to reverse that trend. Remote working is part of it. East-West Rail is part of it. North-South Rail into New York City is a big part of it. Investing in our schools and our communities to build safe, healthy neighborhoods is part of it as well. But if we can get families to come here from New York City, from Boston, raise their families here, live in our great communities, and work remotely and still make those big city salaries, to me that seems like a win-win.
And I know it just started in Vermont, but have you been talking to any state lawmakers there about how it's going?
Yeah, so I've been in touch with officials in Vermont. I have several friends that serve in government there. It's a brand new program there. Their legislature got it done last summer, and it was implemented this year. It came into effect January 1. They have similar challenges in Vermont that we have in Western Mass, which is a lot of industry leaving and a lot of their younger workers leaving. Everywhere I go, Monica, whenever I'm out in the community, at the supermarket, talking to people, people come up to me who say that their kids themselves, they want to stay here, they want to stay in Western Mass, but they feel like they can't because we're not producing enough jobs. So remote working is a way to build off our strengths, which is we're a great place to live. We've got great open space, and we're close to a lot of really fast-growing economic centers.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the incentives in general? Or?
People should share their stories with us. Over the last week or so, as we've talked about this idea, as we filed the bill, I've been inundated on Twitter, on Facebook, through email, through phone calls, from folks who would love to use this, or folks who are sharing their own story about growing up in Western Mass and some of the challenges that they faced finding good jobs. So we're trying to focus on that. It's all about creating jobs. It's about bringing in opportunity, bringing in investment to Western Mass.
Great. Thank you so much.